Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm an intuitive coach and mentor,
And I'm Luisa. I'm an awakening coach and energy healer.
and we're your spiritual besties.
We're just everyday women having an extraordinary human experience.
We've both been led down the path of amazing discoveries through the power of spirituality.
So, we're here to share our experiences as we dive deep into all things sacred.
Our hope is that we can contribute to the collective conversation to help you feel less alone and more confident as you walk the path to becoming more connected with the universe.
We'd love for you to join us each week as we share our discoveries and navigate this journey together.
Record and we just chat. How are you? It's been so long.
I know, it's been a minute. It doesn't really actually feel too long to me just because time is so compressed, it seems like these days. How's everything been going, by the way?
Amazing. I was telling Melissa, I hadn't shared this with you. I know that right after my experience with you, I told you there was a shift. In retrospect, it was literally the last thing holding me back from being so aware of what it meant for us, of doing this type of work. It's like I knew, but after like we did that hypnosis session, it was, oh my gosh, my life has completely changed. And one part of it was just being unaware of the effect of past lives on my current life. And that has been such a shaper for me. So since I met with you, I actually got into soul realignment training. I went through a whole training and just like tapping into the Akashic records and being able to help people that way. And when I was going through the program, it really reminded me of the impact that session with you had. It was the first time that I realized there are all these unseen things that are literally affecting my life today, my ability to move forward or inability to move forward, which I wouldn't have known otherwise. So yeah, it's been going great. Fabulous, I feel like.
You bring up such a great point. That's amazing. I think that's so awesome. Congratulations for taking that step. And that's what I find a lot is that just like connecting with that part of yourself brings you into alignment. And then once you have that better understanding, you just feel like so freed up to go and pursue what you're meant to and what's in alignment with you. And yeah, you bring up a great point because it's funny, right? Like when we look at the idea of just what we've experienced in this life, going back to our childhood and thinking about how impactful our childhood was to us now, right? When you think about it, I mean, we are a product of a lot of our childhoods and what we had experienced, whether that was traumatic or whether that was a great childhood, whatever that may be, or whatever we experienced is what we carry with us now. And especially when you think of the first 6 years, when we don't really remember too much, but that's just a lot of programming that then us now has to undo and step into this new version of ourselves. But now take that, and that's just the little one life that we see here. And now imagine all of this coming before, that being the childhood of your soul. To think that we wouldn't take all of that here is like, I mean, it's just knowing how impactful our childhood is in this life just makes you think, wow, all of those past lives or whatever you want to call them, right? Different experiences that we have would be so impactful to me now.
Yeah, and they are. One of the things that I find as I read souls is exactly that, is there are so many people who have done all of the work, right? Because like you said, we have the awareness for the most part of our childhood and how much that impacts us. Something that we have very little control over. We're children, our parents get to decide for us for the most part. But then there's these people who are so confused. And I think that by the time I got to you, I was one of those people where it was like, I have done so much work. How is it possible that there's still something holding me back? But I felt that, right? So it's this knowing of something that we don't know impacting us.
Hey there. What if I told you that I have the exact roadmap that will take you from feeling unfulfilled, stuck, and overwhelmed to living a life that is truly meaningful and filled with purpose? Well, I'm super excited to announce the release of my brand new masterclass called The Clarity Code: 3 Steps to Discover Your Passion and Unlock More Meaning in Your Life. So if you're ready to finally figure out what you're meant to do in this life and how you can feel incredibly fulfilled in your day-to-day life, you can go ahead and click the link in the show notes below. Access this brand new masterclass right now.
And I love that we're having this conversation because I do think it's important for people to realize that if you've done a ton of work and you still feel like there's something, there probably is something, and it's probably maybe unrelated to this life, because we do take so many things with us from other lives that, because we can't see it, like a lot of things, we're like, oh, we can't see it, it doesn't exist. So thank you so much for that. But what have you been up to these days? Because I know that you've been up to a lot. When I peek at your stories, share all the details.
Man, just expanding and evolving everything really since we've been working since we worked together. So now it is May of 2024, just in case anybody's watching later. Or June actually, June now.
It is June, that's right.
Yeah, now it's June. I got certified in the quantum hypnosis back in January of 2023. And it was funny because when I got certified, you had to give away free sessions. And so I posted this link just on a online communities, some Dolores Cannon page and some communities here in Austin. And the link started getting shared a lot because it was giving away free sessions and, because I needed to practice. And again, you had to give away 25. That link ended up going mini viral because so many people had shared it. It had gotten so many comments and engagement of people wanting the sessions that before I knew it, I was booked up until May or June of 2023. So 5 to 6 months just booked up literally every single day with the sessions. In a sense, when I'm talking to newer practitioners or anything, and they're asking me anything about what I've done to get where I'm at or whatever, I just said the best thing that I could have done for myself was that, because I got so much experience. I literally put myself in the energy of somebody that was already booked up every single day, even though it was free. But I got so much, and these sessions are long, right? They're like 4 hours at least sometimes, and so yeah. So whenever we had connected, I was pretty experienced, but I was still leveraging the framework in which Dolores Cannon's academy had taught me. And this is actually pretty common with past life regression and life between lives, like different modalities, is there's a very rigid and structured way that you move through these lives. Well, I would say the biggest thing that I've been up to since we've connected is I've been expanding this and making it more my own, kind of seeing some of the limitations and the drawbacks of having so much of a structure to it. It's almost the way that I would say it is, imagine this is spirit, right? This is like source. It's, you can't even put a limit on it. You can't put a box on it. It's just everything. It's everywhere. It's us. It's just, and we want to take it and just put it into this little box and say it's got to be this. So that's the way I was doing it before. But as I've been actually getting my own ego out of the way and getting my own sort of thought processes and patterns out of the way of how I think this should be done and just allowing it to take on a life of its own, it's been going in ways that I never would have imagined. So whenever we were working together, it was more like, okay, we're going to go through past lives, or we're going to go through different scenarios and see what's there. Now, I just don't really have too much of an agenda for it and just allow it to go wherever. And it's been very interesting just to see where it's been going. It's been healing. It's really just leveraging a greater power or some sort of force that just knows exactly where to go. And it knows more than, so if I try to move it this way, I don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but it's funny because I started going this direction when I started to have some clients saying, oh, like when you were actually moving me here, I was experiencing this, or I still, and I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't actually be, maybe I should actually just allow it to go where it needs. Yeah, it's been pretty incredible just to see the impact of just where it's allowed to go when there's just no limitations on it. And I feel like it's almost to the point now where it could be even comparable to some of the impacts or the effects of ayahuasca and other of these plant medicines or these very powerful natural healing modalities that are actually healing, but this doesn't have any substances.
That is in such like direct alignment, for lack of a better word, of what I am actually experiencing right now, which is I am learning that flowing with it and following that higher power that knows a lot more than me and my ego think we want for ourselves, the value and the benefit of that. Because what it sounds like is like you allowed it to become, or do allow it in every session to become whatever version of the experience that you offer it's meant to become for that person. And so they get the most healing out of it. And completely naturally, because naturally we should be able to do this, right? When we are in a state of flow and we allow things to actually come through, what we need is what comes through, and what we get is what we need. But it's very hard to get out of our way to be able to do that. But it sounds like you putting aside your ego allowed you to create your own Alex negative version of what you started doing. And I can't wait to experience that.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, you just hit the nail on the head. And it's so funny because a lot of times I'll say that these sessions are almost like microcosms for the macrocosm of our life. A lot of it has to do with surrendering to this higher power in a sense, and almost recognizing that there is something greater than you, and that something has something better in store for us than we could even completely imagine. Like by me and trying to keep it small and trying to play small in this box of what I think it is, not only am I limiting my client's success of what they could possibly see with this, but I'm also limiting my own success trying to force it. And it's almost, are you even able to really force anything in your own life anyway? It almost seems like that's when we can manifest different illnesses and things like that whenever we're trying so hard to control the situation versus just letting it go and allowing it to take us where it needs, just by keeping that small. Again, I'd be limiting where I'm able to go. And I feel like in a way it's been very therapeutic and healthy to just allow this to take me in a direction of which I never even thought I was going to go. And also just recognizing that when you allow that part of you to take the lead and your ego to surrender, it really speeds up where you can go in life. Even to think that this has only been a year and a half since I started, to think where I'm at now. It feels like I've been doing this for 10 years, but if I was trying to keep that small,
Yeah.
I'd still be fumbling around. So whenever we completely allow ourselves to let go, and that's the thing, so this whole journey I feel like is just like stepping into our higher self, is this resistance of, it's scary, it feels like there's fear of the unknown of stepping into that part of ourself, but we have to do it. That's the road. That's the road that we have to go down. And the more that we try to resist and play small, it just it's just going to create suffering.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I have found that to be very true for my own experience. And in a way, not fully, because I think at different turns, there's different levels of fear. But what I find now, it's really hard to try. Not that it's hard to try to control things, because that's not true. That can very easily, because of all the conditioning, swoop itself back in if I let it. But for me, when I feel overly structured, or I just cannot exist in that space anymore. I have such a hard time, for example, thinking of working in like a corporate America environment. For me, I literally cringe. Like my body is, how can I go sit in an office for 9 to 5 and take lunch at 12 every day and do all of those things that feel like, what if that day that's just not the way that my body wants to flow? Once I open myself up to that freedom and facing fear, like looking it in the eye and being like, I'm not letting you control me. It's not that it's not there. It's there at every step of the way. But who's going to be bigger? Is it going to be me, or is it going to be you? And it's really hard to go back though from that. Have you experienced that?
Oh, absolutely. My whole journey has been about facing fears, really. And with the 9 to 5 scenario and all of that, it's almost for me in my life, and maybe for a lot of us, it's this idea of having a safety net, having something to fall back on. And there's this part of us, I feel like sometimes, that wants to come and be saved. It wants something outside of us to save us. But it's we get to a point where it's like the scariest moment is when you realize that there's nobody that's going to come and save you. Essentially, you have to save yourself. You have to be the one that actually takes that step and starts conquering those fears. And what I'm finding is that the fear itself is almost scarier than what it actually is when you go and do it. It's like the fear of the unknown, the fear of the fear. It's like that emotion. And that's been so prominent in my life, of actually just dealing with these emotions and even working through these with clients and realizing what really the root of all illness and disease is actually just trapped emotions, and that the emotions are actually stored in our bodies somatically. So when it's something like fear and anxiety, for example, we're literally feeling that, whether our minds want to or not. Our minds can say, hey, I'm safe, I'm fine. But it's our bodies are, and so it's almost just like a journey of overcoming the fear itself, not even of the actual circumstance. And then once you actually overcome the fear and you're able to move through it, you're in the circumstance and you're like, okay, I can handle this. I'm okay. I'll be able to make it work. But absolutely 100%. It's like fear has been my whole life theme for sure that I've needed to work through.
I think that's true for a lot of us. And I think that it's so important what you said is that the fear of the fear is actually what holds us back from being able to actually step forward. Because once you do step forward, you realize, yeah, I got this. I wonder though, in your work, do you see that a lot in your clients? Is fear one of the overarching things that people have to let go of? Or how do you see that come through in your work?
Yeah, that's a great point. What I've seen and what I'm learning more and more each day is just that, again, the root of all illness, the root of all dis-ease is these stored emotions. It's us not feeling equipped to handle our own emotions. So fear is a huge one, and anxiety and some of these, like anxiety and depression, from what I see, is on some of these things, even autoimmune, like actually seeing what the root of this is, these trapped emotions, whether it's grief or guilt or shame. And all of these are usually actually connected. If you look up the map of consciousness, and you'll see underneath this critical line of courage, which is super interesting to get this understanding that all consciousness, these different levels that we can be at, are all connected to these emotional states. And the emotional states that we can get in due to trapped emotions. So, say, for example, in your past life or your ancestral line, or in your childhood, you dealt with some severe grief or guilt or shame or even fear, feeling unsafe, something that you weren't equipped to handle at that time, that you shoved down and suppressed, not even necessarily for that you meant to. Maybe you were never shown the way to actually handle that, but by shoving that down and by not looking at it, it's actually anchored in your vibration, it's anchored in your energy. And what it does is it then operates underneath the surface, magnetizing all of these circumstances to you that basically just reinforce it, because it's your subconscious or your higher self or just this energy's way of getting your attention so that you'll finally be able to work through it. And then if you continue to not look at it, it just manifests as an illness. And so that gets your attention, right? By the time it manifests as an issue, then you're like, oh, I see that there's something wrong with my leg, or I've got this mental health issue, or I've just got this maybe bipolar or something. But really what it is, we've now named it, but it's actually just this root of the emotions. As you're actually able to go through it, you're able to heal. And I think that's the most like profound thing that I've found throughout all of this, is that these things, it's literally the same tactic. It's the same way to work through everything. It's just actually working through the emotions and letting it go, which is easier said than done, but it's really about letting it be. It's like allowing these emotions to be and not run from them. And by doing that, then you're actually able to move through them. So that's the secret to working through just about anything that I've seen. And it comes through in every single session.
That's a wrap for this episode.
We hope you found some inspiration, a helpful tip, or maybe just a good laugh.
Remember, amazing human, you are not alone on this path to connect with your inner wisdom and the universe.
To stay connected and keep the conversation going, subscribe to our YouTube channel and our podcast so you never miss an episode.
And if this episode resonated with you, share it with your friends, family, or anyone who might find value in it. Until next time.